I have been procrastinating every way I know how and doing everything to avoid finishing the final edit this week and self-sabotaging because I don't want this to be over. I've been with these characters for so long that I can't imagine not thinking about them and tweaking their words and their actions and their fates over and over again. I know I'm also dragging my feet because I hate the end. It's just so over. The most interesting part is the setup. That moment when Diane lets the strange force in their house slide Carol Ann across the floor in a football helmet. The moment when Chris MacNeil first hears that strange scratching in the attic. Casey Cotton asking the mystery caller, "Why do you want to know my name?" And him responding, "Because I want to know who I'm looking at." Heather, Mike, and Josh hearing those sticks snapping deep in the woods. You get it. The promise of what's to come is my favorite moment in every scary story. But eventually, what's to come has to arrive. Ugh, I'm still procrastinating, but I have to end it. I have to tell you what happens to everyone. So, here goes. Chapter 70. Jesus Christ, May, Cornish guffawed. Are you suggesting we burn our houses down? No, of course not. Then what are you suggesting? Lucky pressed. I think we need to dig the keystones out and set them on fire. In our basements? Evelyn said, horrified. No, I hesitated, knowing I was sounding crazier by the minute. I think we should bring them out to the cemetery in the middle of the neighborhood. Now, hold on, Cornish interrupted. Before we go lighting stuff on fire, are the stones really real? We can't know for sure unless we get them appraised, I admitted. But from everything I've read about Payne, my guess is he was committed enough to use real stones. What kind of gemstones do we have? Cornish asked, turning to his wife. Not sure, but they're light blue. Pale sapphire, Lucky said, knowingly. How much are those worth? Cornish asked. I wouldn't know, Lucky replied coldly. They could cover that private school tuition for Tristan, Cornish said, turning back to Linda. It could bridge the gap for us, too, Adam chimed in. I don't think it's safe to use them like that, I said. Why the hell not? Grill scoffed. Because they're cursed. They might very well be the thing fueling this entire nightmare. At least we'd finally get something for all of our trouble, Evelyn pointed out. I highly doubt we'd want what we got, Lucky said calmly. I looked at her gratefully. We all want out of here, right? Or at least we want a choice to stay or go. I'd give anything to leave that house and never step foot in it again, Lucky replied. Cornish echoed the sentiment. Nothing good has come from living here. Beretta looked at her husband. You know how I feel. Grill stared back at her. I'll admit that it's been tense since we bought the place, and to be honest, I don't much care for the shadows. Forbes raised an eyebrow at that last comment. Sounds like we all agree that we want to leave, so why don't we all go to that lawyer as a group and demand to be let out of the contract? Lucky turned to him. Do you remember the last time we tried to do that? Listen, this plan might not fix the fact that we're stuck with these houses, I explained. But if we get rid of those keystones, maybe we can be free of what's haunting us. But what about Cheryl's house? And Derek and Kat's? Evelyn pointed out. I have Cheryl's key, I replied. And I have a copy of Kat's. She gave it to me for emergencies, Lucky offered. So you're just going to break into our neighbors' homes and steal priceless gem-encrusted keystones and burn them in the cemetery at the center of the cul-de-sac? Adam said in disbelief. We, Forbes corrected him, we are going to do that. How are we supposed to pull those things out of the basement floor, though? Evelyn asked. They're cemented in, right? I bet a chisel and hammer will do the trick, Cornish suggested. Just work around the circumference to loosen it from the concrete, then wedge a chisel beneath it, pry it out. I've got extra tools if anyone needs them, said Forbes. I'll take you up on that, Adam said. The kids are always fucking around with my toolbox. There's just one flaw in your brilliant plan, Grill drawled. How do you propose we burn stone? It's symbolic, I replied. Why don't we just smash them to pieces? Stop being contrary, Lucky snapped. She already explained the whole fire and water situation. Grill silently looked around the room. Okay, fine. So now what? If I could just play devil's advocate, said Tom. What if we do this and nothing happens? What if we do it and something does? Lucky countered. Okay, fair enough, but what if it makes it worse? How could this possibly get any worse? Asked Evelyn. More people could get hurt. Are you suggesting we do nothing? Grill demanded. I reached for Tom's hand. I really want to try this. He gave me a tight smile. Okay. Grill looked around the room. So now what? Now you all go home and dig up the stones. Tom and I will retrieve the valentines. Wait a minute. I'm not sure I want to break into anyone's house. Who's going to tell them? Adam pointed out. I know Derek would be on board with this plan, Lucky said. Tom nodded in resignation. Does anyone want to volunteer for Cheryl's? I asked. We'll do it, said Linda. I know her house like the back of my hand. We're really doing this right now? Asked Lucky. Yes, I replied evenly. We'll get the Valentine's keystone first, then come back for ours. We can all meet back here. Hopefully it won't take long. Forbes stood. Well then, let's get to it. I retrieved Cheryl's key from the kitchen counter and handed it to Cornish. If it helps, I've got like 5 cans of lighter fluid, he offered. We thought we were going to grill a lot more this summer, but it was too damn hot. You know you're not supposed to just keep that stuff laying around your house, Grill snarled. You could burn the whole neighborhood down, you jackass. Would that be such a bad thing? Beretta muttered. Chapter 71. The neighbors left our house 2 by 2, hopeful and worried. As Evelyn walked out behind Adam, she told me they'd sent the boys to stay with his parents for a few nights so they'd have a chance to sort through their finances. It's like it was meant to be, she enthused. I hope this works. Tom went to the basement to collect the tools we'd need, while I went to check on Poppy. I closed her into our bedroom to avoid the risk of her slipping out the front door as the neighbors came and went. I peeked in and saw her curled up, sound asleep on Tom's pillow. Smiling to myself, I shut the door gently, not wanting to disturb her. Tom was waiting for me in the entryway with a hammer and chisel in hand. Give me a second, he said, running upstairs. He returned a few moments later wearing a baseball hat. We're breaking into a house, he said, answering before I had a chance to ask. I didn't exactly want to be recognizable. I shrugged into my jacket and led the way outside. Leaves crunched underfoot as we crossed the brick walkway. The temperature had dropped, and a brisk wind forced me to cross my arms tightly against the chill. The trees on the island at the center of the neighborhood swayed violently in the breeze, their leaves having almost all dropped. Past the first line of shrubs and bushes, the interior was inky black. I didn't want to think about what it would be like trekking into that darkness. I trained my eyes on the road, scurrying to keep up with Tom. He stared straight ahead. Thank you for giving this a chance, I offered to fill the silence. This is a very bad idea, he replied, without looking at me. Derek won't mind if we go into their house. That's not what I'm worried about, he said, stopping abruptly. What if this doesn't work and you've dragged everyone out for nothing? Then what? Then we try something else. And what if someone gets hurt? That's already happened, I argued. I reached and took the hammer from him. And it's going to continue to happen until we do something to stop the cycle. I resumed walking. Tom followed, but stayed a step behind me. Wiping the grit off the hammer's handle, I asked, So why are all the tools muddy? There was a pause, then. After you got poison ivy, I wanted to widen the path out to the main trail so I wouldn't run the risk of catching it myself when I went out for runs. Why didn't you just tell me that? I don't know, he sighed. We walked a few more steps. But what did you use the hammer for? I pressed. The raised garden beds were coming apart at the seams. I fixed them. Kat warned me not to plant anything but flowers. She said Olive's cat used the beds as her litter box. Tom chuckled. You tell me that now. We made it to the end of the Valentine's driveway. I stopped and stared up at the dark house. We don't have to do this. Yes, we do, I replied, pulling the key from my pocket. What if they have an alarm system? He asked as we climbed the front steps. Who the hell will hire me as their real estate agent if we get caught breaking into our neighbor's house? It'll take the police a few minutes to respond to the alarm, right? We'll just have to dig out the keystone as quickly as we can. We could tell the police we were checking on the house for Derek. I know he'd back us up once we explained to him what we were doing. I reached out and slid the key into the lock, hesitating only a moment before opening the door. I held my breath, waiting for the beeping of an alarm. Hearing nothing, we stepped inside. The silence and darkness inside were nearly complete. I reached for the wall switch and turned on the hallway light, but Tom quickly turned it off. It's pitch black in here, I whispered nervously. We don't need to advertise that we're here. I moved past the stairs to the back of the house. After turning on the light in the powder room, I closed the door most of the way so that it wouldn't shine too brightly in the hallway. Better? A low creak over our heads caused us both to look up at the ceiling. We shouldn't be here, Tom whispered. Let's just get this over with, I whispered back, opening the basement door. Unlike our bare wooden cellar stairs, the Valentine steps were carpeted in a cheerful navy blue and gray Greek key-patterned rug. The walls painted a crisp white, but the musty smell matched that of our basement. We stepped off the bottom stair into a carpeted playroom lined with gray couches covered in colorful throw pillows. Kids' toys were strewn across the floor, and a large flat-screen television took up most of the far wall. The room had been created in only a portion of the basement, walled off from the rest of the space. I crossed the room to a door to the left of the TV and opened it slowly, then flipped a switch on the other side of the wall, and light illuminated the stone walls of the unfinished section of the basement. Turning back, I saw Tom hadn't followed me. Come on, I urged. What if they covered the keystone in their renovation? I shook my head. It's all original back here. We'll follow the back wall to the underside of the stairs. Reluctantly, he crossed the room, taking his phone from his back pocket and turning on his flashlight app. Just in case, he said, following me through the door. We passed the washer and dryer, situated between the hot water heater and the wooden door to the bulkhead. A lavender cashmere sweater lay atop a laundry rack. The care with which it had been laid out broke my heart all over again. I imagined Kat thoughtfully placing it there while keeping an ear out for her boys in the playroom. We followed a narrow hallway created by the back wall of the playroom and the outer stone wall of the basement. As we walked, I pulled strings connected to the bare bulbs hanging from the ceiling. The wall was lined with neatly stacked plastic containers labeled Halloween, Christmas, and baby clothes. It was all I could do not to break down at the sight of them. Finally, we turned the corner and Tom's cell flashlight lit up the underside of the staircase. Deep blue sapphires glittered in the light. The gems formed a simple wave across the center of the keystone. It's beautiful, I said, crouching down. Tom just stared. I took the chisel from him and went around the circumference of the stone, carefully tapping the handle with the hammer to create a crack between the keystone and the concrete floor. Very gently, I pushed the chisel beneath the keystone, again working around the circle until it was loose enough to pop out of the ground. I held my breath, sure that something would happen to stop me from actually removing the keystone, but the house was eerily quiet. I held the keystone out to Tom. Here, hold this, and I'll grab the tools. Instead, he bent down and grabbed the hammer and chisel. Let's get the hell out of here. This place gives me the creeps. He pulled strings as we went, eliminating the light that made it at least somewhat bearable. I fought the urge to grab the lavender sweater off the drying rack as I passed it, consumed with a deep sadness at leaving something of Kat's in that dark place. I followed him through the door to the playroom, back to the base of the stairs, when he turned abruptly. We shouldn't leave that open, he said, referring to the door that separated the old portion of the basement from the new. Just leave it. What's the difference? As I watched him go back, I heard a creak at the top of the basement stairs. Forcing myself to look, I watched as the basement door closed very slowly. Behind me, Tom screamed. I spun around to see him barreling towards me. Get upstairs, now, he yelled. Go! I took the stairs 2 at a time, Tom hot on my heels. With all my strength, I threw myself against the door, half expecting someone to push against it and block our way, but it offered no resistance. We ran straight outside. Tom slammed the front door behind us. When I stopped halfway down the driveway, he grabbed my arm, dragging me forward. Keep going. We'd made it halfway back to our house when I managed to wrench my arm free. Stop, I yelled, trying to catch my breath. What happened? He stared back at the Valentine's house, and I could tell he was looking to see if anything had followed us. Tom, please, you're scaring the hell out of me. You were right, he said, reaching for my hand, pulling me forward again. They can mimic us. Who did you see? I asked, afraid of his answer. He glanced back at me. Kat. She poked her head around the doorway just as I reached for the door handle. She smiled at me. Chapter 72. We stopped dead in our tracks at the end of our driveway. The lights, I whispered. We'd left the house ablaze, but it sat before us in pitch darkness. I told you this was a horrible idea, Tom muttered. Oh, no, I said, running across the lawn. Poppy! I rushed inside and flipped the panel of switches beside the door, half expecting them not to respond, but when they did, I started up the stairs. Tom grabbed my arm. Wait, let me go. We don't know what's up there. He climbed slowly, stopping several steps from the top. The bedroom door is open, he whispered. Maybe it's one of the neighbors, I suggested, though the second the words left my mouth, I realized what a stupid idea it was. Wait there. Chances are the cat slipped out. But she comes to find us when we get home. I know, he said softly. Just wait there. He moved through the hallway into the bedroom. I waited for what seemed like an eternity. Unable to hold back any longer, I ran up and found him in our bathroom. What are you doing? Tom knelt in front of the tub, his back to me. I leaned forward and saw the cat motionless on the bath mat before him. What happened? I screamed. Tom gently pushed me out of the bathroom, slamming the door behind us. You can't just leave her in there. We have to do something. May, she's gone. I'm sorry. It's too late, he insisted, holding me back. I slumped against the wall, too stunned to respond. Do you see how dangerous this is? We need to stop before someone else gets hurt. It's always been dangerous living here, I sobbed, wiping angrily at my eyes. If we don't finish this, it'll never end. Loud banging caused us both to jump. We rushed downstairs to open the front door. On the other side stood a white-faced Cornish, Linda behind him, scanning the yard. Let us in, Cornish demanded. What happened? We got 'em, he replied. They came up, but it wasn't easy. Linda clunked a reusable shopping bag on the kitchen island. Ours popped right out, but Cheryl's was another story. I was watching him try to pry it up when I heard a noise in the back corner of the basement. I remembered that Cheryl told you all she broke the window down there so someone could hear her call for help. It was so stupid of me. She trailed off, glancing at Cornish. What was it? I asked anxiously. Linda looked up and met my eyes. Oh, honey, she said, ignoring the question. Are you all right? I'm fine, I replied hastily. What happened in the basement? Linda eyed her husband. His face had regained some color, but he didn't look well. She placed a hand on his back and asked if he was all right. Cornish gave a curt nod. Tell him what happened. I heard a noise over by the water heater, by the bulkhead. It sounded like whimpering. I thought of the open window, and I got it in my head that an animal might have climbed in and gotten trapped down there. I was so focused on getting that damn stone up, I didn't realize she was by my side until I heard her screaming, Cornish added. It was Cheryl's cat. She hissed and darted right at my legs. I screamed because I tripped trying to get away from her. I don't know what was wrong with her. I grabbed a laundry basket and had to keep shooing her away until Cornish finally pulled up the keystone. She chased us out of the basement. Who's taking care of that damn thing for Cheryl anyway? Cornish asked. We are, Tom answered in a low voice. That wasn't Cheryl's cat, I told them. Oh, it was. I've known Poppy for years, Linda protested. Her cat is here. She's dead, Tom finished, harshly. Oh boy, said Cornish. Linda opened her mouth to say something, but then closed it, obviously at a loss for words. We stood in awkward silence until I told them that we had the Valentine's keystone, but hadn't retrieved our own yet. We better go down and get it. Hold on, Tom began, but he was interrupted by the doorbell. In a tense silence, the other three couples walked into our house. They still have to dig up their stone, Cornish announced. Forbes strode across the kitchen and opened the basement door. Let's go. I grabbed the hammer and chisel off the counter and followed Forbes, with Tom and Grill following closely behind. I went straight to the keystone and began working the chisel around its outer edge. Grill stood as though on guard, his eyes scanning the basement. Tom remained near the stairs. Nice, Forbes commented, crossing over to the tool bench. I've been thinking about getting one of these. I looked up as Tom rushed to his side. Forbes began to open one of the bench's many drawers when Tom got there first, slamming it shut. Forbes held up his hands. Sorry, man, didn't mean to. It's nothing, Tom said hastily. Let's just get this over with and get out of here. He looked at me. How's it coming? Almost there, I replied, unnerved by his behavior. What the hell took so long? Linda huffed when we returned to the kitchen. It just didn't want to come up, I explained. I wasn't even sure we'd get it out. Maybe we should wait until morning, Evelyn suggested. No way, said Grill, after what it took to get that keystone out of our basement. I think May's onto something. We need to see this through. What happened when you were pulling up the stone? Forbes asked. Grill only shook his head in response. Oh, shit, Cornish exclaimed. I forgot the damn lighter fluid. You had one job, Grill growled. No, we didn't, Grill. We had to go to Cheryl's house to get our keystone, and we ended up getting chased out of there by your dead cat. Poppy's dead? Evelyn exclaimed, looking at me. I'm sorry, we found her in our bathroom. I thought she'd be safe when we went to Kat's, but... Before any of us end up dead in a bathroom, I suggest we get on with it, Grill barked. Linda opened her mouth to respond, but Cornish put a hand on her arm to silence her. Grill headed for the door. Come on, Cornish, let's go get that fucking lighter fluid. When he saw our looks of surprise, he grumbled, It's the only way I can be sure this jackass won't screw it up. We watched them leave, Linda and Beretta calling, Be careful, as they walked outside. Chapter 73. You know, Adam said, studying the keystones laid out on the kitchen island, we should reconsider having these things appraised. We could be sitting on a small fortune. A dead cat just chased me and Cornish out of Cheryl's basement, Linda said dryly. There's a gremlin in my house that keeps growing, Lucky added. 2 demons pretended to be me and Derek, Evelyn chimed in. Adam held his hands up in defense. I'm just saying we could at least consider our options. Anyone want a drink? I asked. We'll have tea, Lucky said firmly. We can get drunk after we set fire to the priceless artifacts. I laughed despite myself and grabbed the teapot off the stove. I was filling it at the sink when Linda asked, It's colder out there than I thought, May. Can I borrow a scarf? Sure, I said over my shoulder. There are a couple on the wall hooks right across from the stairs. Do you care which one I use? No, take whatever you want, I replied, placing the teapot on the stove. You know she's going to take the cashmere, Lucky stage whispered. You'll never see it again. Shush, I said, stifling a laugh. Cornish and Grill returned moments later, each holding 2 extra-large cans of lighter fluid. The teapot screamed, startling everyone, and I rushed to turn off the stove. He insisted we bring all of it, Grill grumbled. Well, you never know, Cornish said defensively, emptying his pockets and dropping 4 lighters onto the counter. Tom grabbed a lighter and a can of accelerant. 1 should be plenty. We don't want to set fire to the whole neighborhood. The tea was forgotten as we turned our attention to the task at hand. Jackets were zipped, scarves tightened, winter hats borrowed, and flashlights distributed. I grabbed the Valentine's keystone and our own. Cornish held the bag with his and Cheryl's, and Grill and Adam held theirs. We filed out the front door and into the yard, pausing at the edge of our property. It'll be a nightmare getting through that underbrush, Cornish complained. It's not that bad, I countered, turning on my flashlight and taking a step forward. Tom moved beside me. The group followed in silence. We stopped at the edge of the island. All was still, save for the shuffling of feet as we attempted to keep warm in the freezing night air. Flashlight beams moved along the tall grass and shrubbery carpeting the ground. I spotted a small gap in the prickly bushes and stepped forward. Tom followed, then everyone else, with Grill bringing up the rear. The dense pine trees reflected the light cast from our flashlights, obscuring our view further than a few feet. At one point, Lucky let out a frustrated, Ouch! God damn it! Otherwise, no one spoke until we reached the center of the island. We fanned out along the edge of the clearing, our flashlight beams bouncing across the triangular formation of headstones. How did we not know about this? Grill said in disbelief. I'm shocked the boys haven't come out here to explore, Adam agreed. They don't want us out here, Beretta whispered. I glanced over and saw that she was trembling. Cornish took a tentative step forward, pulled the keystones out of his bag, and placed them on the ground near the center of the circle. We should probably do this close to the middle so the trees don't catch fire. Good thinking, said Grill. After several minutes of deliberation, we agreed to arrange the keystones in the center of the circle as far from the trees as possible. There was more deliberation over the best way to saturate the stones with lighter fluid. The men stood staring at the keystones laid out at their feet, passive-aggressively arguing with one another as though they were discussing the most effective way to grill a steak. Adam suggested they just drench the things, then make a trail of lighter fluid to the edge of the woods and light it. This isn't a fucking cartoon, Grill responded. During the deliberations, I found myself studying the tombstones, shining my flashlight on the names and dates chiseled into the mossy stone. Lucky and Evelyn stood near the men, watching the debate with obvious irritation, while Beretta and Linda stayed closer to the headstones, whispering anxiously. I stopped when I came to Lorelei Payne's grave. Her name had been carved into the headstone in the same heavy typeset as the rest of the stones, but beneath it was a carving of a bridge. At its center, a familiar symbol, a circle with a dot at its center. I stepped closer and saw that beneath the bridge the words Akron Pike were written in script. I flashed the light across the other 6 headstones to see if I'd missed any other images or writing. Nothing, just names and dates. My light fell again upon Lorelei's headstone, an idea forming. But I was startled back to the present by Grill's angry voice. "It's the only goddamn thing that makes sense." He knelt on the ground beside a keystone. Cornish drenched the stone, and Grill grabbed another keystone from the pile and placed it on top of the first. Cornish doused that one, and so on. The arrangement made me think of a stack of pancakes being drenched in maple syrup. They'd stacked 4 of the stones when behind me a high-pitched scream pierced the air. I turned to see Linda on the ground sliding back behind the last row of headstones, Beretta behind her, struggling to hold on to Linda's arms. It looked as if they were both being dragged by something. Forbes and Adam rushed to help them, pulling them back. "He has my leg!" Linda screamed. "Who?" Forbes yelled. "I'm losing my grip on her!" Beretta shrieked. Everything was chaos. Grill stepped in and pulled Beretta away. Between him, Forbes, and Adam, they were able to free Linda. She ended up in Cornish's arms, sobbing, her forehead scratched and bleeding, one arm of her jacket shredded. Grill examined her forehead. "She needs stitches." "What happened to your head?" Cornish demanded. "I think I hit it on the headstone when I fell," Linda replied. "Who was that?" Beretta screamed. "Where did he go?" "I've never seen him before," Linda said in a concerningly calm voice, blood streaming down her face. "Whoever he was strong," Beretta said shakily, holding a mittened hand to Linda's forehead. "It's trying to stop us," Grill said. "We're on the right track." "But I thought a man grabbed her," Evelyn said. "That wasn't a person," Forbes said in a low voice. "This is too dangerous," I added shakily, knowing I wouldn't be able to forgive myself if anyone else got hurt. "Let's just get this over with and get the fuck out of here," Forbes insisted. I noticed Tom was walking in circles, staring at the ground as though he was searching for something. "What's wrong?" I asked. "I can't find the lighter," he said desperately. "What the hell happened to it?" Forbes demanded. "I don't know. I must have dropped it when we were trying to help Linda." "Does anyone else have a lighter?" Grill asked calmly. No one did. "See, I told you we'd need more than just one," Cornish exclaimed. "It's fine," Grill said, in that calm, commanding tone. "Linda has a concussion, and I need to stitch her up. These stones aren't going anywhere." "What if someone comes out here and takes them?" Adam asked. "They're valuable." "Who in their right mind would come out here by themselves?" Evelyn countered. "Shh," Tom hissed. "Do you hear that?" We stood silently. Something was moving through the underbrush, crunching and swishing around us. "I don't want to go back into those woods," Lucky said shakily. "Only way out is through," Grill said decisively. "What if it attacks us?" "Then we fight it off," Grill responded, grabbing his wife's hand. With no choice, we followed him, holding hands in a chain. Grill led the way, with Forbes at the back. Beside us, I heard rustling noises and a few low growls. I was so terrified I don't remember clearly how we got out of there, but before we knew it, we were back out on the street, panting, staring at one another in disbelief. "Now what?" asked Adam. "Now we get you cleaned up," Beretta said, taking Linda by the hand and leading her toward her driveway. "Do you really think it's a good idea to split up?" Forbes asked. "I don't think there's anything else we're going to accomplish tonight," Grill said with finality. "We'll regroup in the morning." "I'm exhausted," Evelyn admitted, "and scared. I want to go home." "Yeah, I've definitely had enough," her husband agreed, taking her hand. "Well, I don't want to go home by ourselves," Lucky said. I hadn't heard her say a word since Linda was attacked, and she was nearly hysterical. "Someone just tried to drag Linda into those fucking woods, Forbes. I'm not going home alone." "You can come to our house," I told her reassuringly. "That's fine," Forbes agreed, "but I'm not going anywhere else tonight without my gun." "And we're out," Adam said, tugging Evelyn along with him. "I'm not interested in getting shot." "But that was a ghost. You can't shoot a ghost," Linda said. "How do you know that?" Forbes demanded. "Come on," Grill said. "Cornish and Linda, you come to our house, and we'll get Linda all stitched up. You can stay at our place tonight." Cornish chuckled. "Who would have thought?" "Not me," Grill agreed. "You 4 will stay together, correct?" he said, holding Forbes's gaze. Forbes gave a tight nod in response. "All right, then. Call if anything comes up, and we'll touch base in the morning." We watched the couples walk away in opposite directions. Forbes turned to us. "I'll grab the gun and come to your place. Lucky, you stay with them." Are you insane? I'm not letting you go anywhere alone, she screeched, gripping his arm. Chapter 74. Maybe we should go with them. No, we need to get inside, said Tom, pulling me down our driveway. I stepped through the front door and immediately heard running water. We must have been so distracted when we left, I said, moving into the kitchen and turning off the faucet. But when I shut it off, I could still hear water. Tom went into the back hall. It's the sink, he called from the powder room, but the sound didn't go away after he shut it off. Upstairs, I whispered, as he came back into the kitchen. It sounds like the shower. I'll get it, he offered. And I'll bring the cat down and put her in the garage. I began to protest, but he cut me off. We'll bury her tomorrow. Staring out the window over the sink, I listened as he climbed the stairs. The floodlights were on in the backyard, and I could see the entrance to the path. I thought of that man, the one who'd broken into our apartment, how Derek had seen him clearing out the debris from the stream, the lake, Cat, Lorelei's grave, the bridge at the entrance to the neighborhood. Behind me, the lock on the basement door clicked. I turned and watched it gently swing open. I glanced towards the front hall, hesitating only a moment before moving to the top of the basement stairs. I forced myself forward and peered around the basement, checking for monsters, before heading straight for the workbench. I began opening drawers. The first few held the predictable nails, wrenches, and other tools. I began to think I was being ridiculous for suspecting Tom might be hiding something. Then I opened the second-to-last drawer. At first, I thought it was empty, but when I began to close it, I heard something slide around. I reached toward the back of the drawer and pulled out Olive Talbot's journal, its soft brown leather unmistakable. I flipped through the pages, trying to make sense of its existence. Did you find what you were looking for? I hadn't heard him come down the stairs. He stood in the center of the basement. I stood up, holding the journal out in front of me. What are you doing with this? I found it in the woods. I stared at him. Stop lying, I said finally. Tom held up his hands. It's been a stressful night, and I know this must be dredging up all those old feelings from the break-in. Don't do that, I screamed. Why don't we go pour a drink, calm down a bit? What is wrong with you? I pleaded. All I want to do is get us out of this fucking neighborhood. Well, you're not going to. I'm sorry? He rubbed his face with his hands. Just zoom out for a second, May. Do you have any idea how many people would kill to be in our position? This fucking house, a 4-bedroom on 2 acres that backs conservation land? Seriously? Something massacred a dozen deer on that conservation land. A ghost just tried to drag our neighbor off into the woods. I told you someone was going to get hurt, Tom nearly shouted, stabbing a finger toward me. If you'd taken the hint with that cat, none of this would have happened. Ice trickled through my veins. Did you do something to Poppy? I knew I shouldn't have dragged my feet on that second car, he muttered. I was afraid that if you kept that job in the city, you'd have less time in the house and less time for them to imprint. But you needed a distraction. Andrew was right. That idiot was right. The job would have kept your busy little mind preoccupied. Who the hell is Andrew? We thought once you got out here, you'd go along to get along, but fuck if you haven't been a pain in my ass from the jump. Who the fuck is we? I breathed. Good question. He smiled and took a step towards me. I took a step to the side, angling closer to the stairs. You're so close. I'm impressed with how you've managed to blunder your way this far. My little walking, talking Google. His smile faded. But I can't let you fuck everything up. I took another step toward the stairs. I didn't want to be alone in that basement with him for one more second. You know what? He offered. I'll give you a hint. Just one, though. I was adopted. I know that. And what did I tell you about my birth parents? That they died, I said, my voice shaking. How? They were in an accident. Not exactly. He nodded encouragingly. What if I told you that my dad killed my mom? I just shook my head, horrified. And then he killed himself. He looked at me expectantly. Come on, May. A murder-suicide. My dad killed my mom in a jealous rage. In a lust-fueled jealous rage. And he did it right down the street at number 7. My legs nearly gave out beneath me. You connecting the dots? He asked, smirking. I was born in this neighborhood. I lived just down the street with my parents and my little brother until I was 4. Andrew was 1 when we went into foster care, and he got adopted quickly. Babies always do. Not many people are in the market for a deeply traumatized 4-year-old. I only had vague memories of them, but once I had their names, it was easy enough to find out what happened. And then I found out about this neighborhood, and then I went and found Andrew. Chapter 75. I'm sorry you had to meet him under such unfortunate circumstances, but I didn't have time for hemming and hawing. We sort of had an inside track on this house, and once the ball got rolling, I had no choice but to pry you out of the city by any means necessary. So you had your brother break into our apartment and destroy all of our belongings? You were never in any danger. He was supposed to be long gone by the time you got home, but he was kind of an idiot. Regardless, it got us out here. Why the fuck are you doing this? I've been dying to tell you everything. I have, really. I found out who my parents were right before we met, and I didn't want to freak you out. I mean, crazy backstory, right? And then, as I researched more and more, I came across all those articles about this neighborhood. Same ones you found, he said excitedly. I read about Elwyn Payne and his brilliant plans for a sacrificial circle, and something inside me clicked. I knew I was meant to be here. I dug into his ideas, and I saw that with some tweaks, there was real potential. Potential for what? A good life, May. A nice house in a gorgeous neighborhood. A place we could put down roots, start a family. I didn't want that. You wanted that. I was happy in the city. No, you weren't. You were desperate to get out of that apartment. Right, because of the break-in. The break-in that you set up. Tom scrubbed his face with his hands. You have to trust me. I know what I'm doing. Andrew and I fixed it. No one had paid attention to this place for so long that the boundaries had become weak. We put things back the way they were meant to be. What exactly did you do? I asked, terrified of his answer, wanting to run, but not sure I could make it out of there without him stopping me. It was simple. We cleaned up the streams around the neighborhood, dragged out a bunch of fallen branches and debris, and got the water flowing again. Their nature is fire, their restraint water. Let this be our holy guide, I finished for him. Good girl, he said, clapping his hands. That's right. By getting those streams flowing, we strengthen the boundary and concentrated the energy. I'll say one thing for the neighbors. As clueless as they were right on one account. Things did get a hell of a lot worse for them once we moved in. But why? For what? Power. For you? Why not? How? Andrew and I tinkered. And then you killed him. Tom's eyes narrowed. It wasn't something I planned for, and it isn't something that I'm proud of. But when I saw what he'd done to those deer, he'd poisoned them, and then... Well, I don't have to tell you this place is strange, Tom chuckled, as though sharing an inside joke. I don't know what he was thinking. He insisted it was a sacrifice. He shouldn't have spent so much time in those woods. At any rate, he put everything in jeopardy. I had no choice. What about Kat? It's what they do. It's their right to take some of us. Who the fuck are you? I breathed. Listen to me. It's working. What I've done worked. The demons are as trapped here as everyone else. Their potential is stifled. They want influence, and influence over many is better than influence over a few, right? So you're going to sacrifice our neighbors? No, I can't control what happens to everyone else, but I can protect us. I made a deal. I let them use me to extend their reach. Use me as a tool to create envy in people outside their little circle of influence. They'll give me wealth and power, and through me, they can extend the devastation that envy brings to countless others. You're doing all of this to make people jealous of you? We are on the brink of everything I've ever dreamed of for us. I know it's a lot to take in, but just consider it. Look how you've blossomed here. You've come out of your shell and made friends. I promise that a position will be arranged for you at the library in time. We can have everything we want. You just have to focus on building a family right now. You can go back to work in a few years. Family? You want to bring children into this demon-infested house? His jaw tightened. Look, I need you to be a team player. Or what? He shrugged. Or you won't see this place live up to its potential. You won't see me live up to my potential. It can't just be me. That's part of the deal. If you can't do this, then I have to find someone who can. Robbie is a nice girl, and she wants a family sooner rather than later, so either way, things work out. You fucking asshole. Something massive pounded against the bulkhead, causing us both to scream. I didn't hesitate. I ran for the stairs, sprinting up them 2 at a time. I could hear Tom right behind me, but when I got to the top of the stairs, I managed to slam the door and turn the deadbolt. "Open this fucking door!" he screamed, crashing into it. I grabbed a bottle of lighter fluid off the counter and slid one of the lighters into my back pocket, then ran outside. I was halfway across the street when I heard the front door bang open behind me and Tom scream my name. I pushed forward, headed for the island. "May," Lucky called out, "where are you going?" I glanced over and saw the Moonies halfway between our driveway and theirs. There wasn't any time to explain. I kept running straight into the underbrush. "Stop her!" Tom yelled. "She doesn't know what she's doing." Chapter 76. He was too close. I sprayed a trail of lighter fluid behind me and chanced stopping to light it, hoping that it would slow him down. The dark made it nearly impossible to move through the underbrush, but I pressed on, branches slashing at my face and shrubs nearly tripping my every step. I grasped the large bottle of accelerant, knowing it would be disastrous if I dropped it. The fire crackled behind me, catching quickly on years of fallen leaves and debris. Tom yelled for me to stop, and Lucky just kept calling my name. Finally, I popped out of the woods into the clearing. It was eerily still and quiet. The smell of smoke filled the air. Knowing I only had seconds to spare, I went straight to the pile of keystones. I piled the remaining 3 on top of the others and drenched them with lighter fluid, just as Tom burst through the trees. "Don't do it, May. You have no idea what we have a chance at here." "We?" "What in the fuck is going on?" Lucky demanded, stumbling out into the clearing about 10 feet from Tom, followed by her husband. "It's him!" I screeched. "He's the one doing all of this." Tom put his hands up and held Forbes's gaze. "She's freaking out." "Shut up!" I screamed. "He killed his brother. That man in the woods was his brother. He grew up in Kat's house. He's trying to somehow make all of Elwyn Payne's plans give him power or some shit." "May, honey, listen to yourself," Tom pleaded in that same steady voice. "It's been a rough night, and I think if we all got back inside and talked it out—" "Shut the fuck up!" I screamed. "The smoke is getting really bad," Lucky said shakily, covering her nose with the collar of her jacket. I flicked the lighter and touched it to the top of the stack of keystones. "Just hang on," Tom growled. "What in the hell is going on out here?" Grill demanded, stepping into the clearing. Tom took a step towards me, and I held up the can of lighter fluid. "Stay back." "We can sort this out at our house," said Grill. "We got to get out of here." I didn't drop my arm and kept my eye on the pile of keystones, watching as the fire cascaded down the stack. I didn't know what I was expecting to happen, but the look of horror on Tom's face made me suspect it would be something awful, worse than whatever the smoke would do to us. He moved fast, headed straight for the pile, and I knew he was going to kick them apart, so I sprayed the lighter fluid on him without a thought. "May!" Lucky screeched. "What the fuck is wrong with you?" Tom demanded, stopping in his tracks. "Me?" "Enough," Grill said. "Tom, that's enough." "Fuck off, Grill," Tom snarled. "You have no idea what's going on here." "That might be, but I know I saw you throw the lighter in the woods when we were out here earlier, and I know you're covered in lighter fluid, and that fire is moving through that underbrush real fast." But Tom wasn't paying attention to him any longer. As the fire met the bottom keystone, he crouched down as if he was expecting an explosion. We all stilled. The crackling of the fire became a roar around us as it consumed years of fallen branches and leaves. "What was supposed to happen, Tom?" Lucky asked after a long moment. He looked up but didn't respond. "Why didn't it work?" I demanded. "Who gives a shit?" said Forbes. "Let's get out of here." Tom stood up and wiped his hands on the front of his pants. I backed away from him and bumped into one of the headstones. Lorelei, that drawing, the circle on the bridge, the circle with the dot inside it. "Oh my God," I whispered, staring at my husband. By the way he was looking back at me, I knew that he knew exactly what I was thinking. I ran across the clearing into the trees. I heard a shout and a grunt that I was pretty sure came from Tom, then Grill yelling, "Just keep him down!" "Jesus Christ, Forbes, be careful!" Lucky screamed. The wind was not working in my favor. Smoke burned my eyes and lungs. I pressed through, coughing, my hands gripping the can and lighter so tightly they ached. Finally, I stumbled out onto the street in front of Evelyn's house. I stopped to catch my breath when a gunshot rang out. Over the crackling of the fire, I heard Lucky scream, "May, run! He's coming!" I sprinted toward the entrance to the cul-de-sac. The smoke was getting worse, and I realized we were probably going to lose the whole island. "May!" Evelyn stood on her doorstep, Adam beside her. "What's burning?" "The island," I called back. "Call 911. I made it to the bridge. The drawing on Lorelei's headstone showed the keystone floating above it. I didn't see it anywhere beneath my feet. I scanned the walls on either side and let out a scream of frustration, wondering if I should just start spraying the whole bridge down. "What are you looking for?" "Adam," I screamed, nearly jumping out of my skin. "There's another keystone. It's somewhere on this bridge." "Look again," he said, pointing at the ground in the center. I looked. There it was. Without hesitation, I doused it with lighter fluid. "May!" my treacherous, psychopathic liar of a husband croaked, coughing as he stumbled towards us. "Stay away from me," I screamed. "Grab her," he yelled to Adam. "She's going to burn all our houses down." "You really fucked up," Adam said to Tom. Tom's face changed from anger to fear. He looked at me, terrified, his eyes pleading as if I could help him. Adam shifted his pitch-black gaze back to me. "Light it," he said calmly. "Set us free." I kept my eyes on the Adam thing as I slid the lighter out of my pocket. I clicked it to flame just as, out of the corner of my eye, I saw the real Adam running down his driveway, hose in his hand, screaming to his wife, "Run the water!" Evelyn, sobbing, screamed back, "I'm trying, it's stuck!" I turned and made eye contact with Tom as I knelt and touched the flame to the keystone. A wall of impossible heat and force threw me backward. The last thing I remember before my head hit the ground was the screaming, a high-pitched, triumphant screech that cut through my soul. Chapter 77. A cool breeze blew off the Charles. Across the river, the Boston skyline stood strong and solid, unchanged. It was hard to be close to the water without thinking of the lake, the cul-de-sac. My therapist, a kind woman in Cambridge whose chocolate lab napped in the corner during our weekly sessions, encouraged me to spend time outside. She believed the outdoors were medicinal, a treatment for trauma and grieving. It was difficult to make any progress with that trauma when I couldn't share what really went on in the cul-de-sac, but I took her advice and walked the path along the Charles every morning. The official version was that Tom and I had smelled smoke and went outside to find the island on fire. We'd gone to each neighbor's house to warn them of the danger. We'd split up, me heading to the Moonies, Tom to the Russ, then the Gullivers. At that moment, terrifyingly, coincidentally, inexplicable bad luck struck, and the ancient dam that had been holding back Acheron Lake for over 50 years finally gave up the ghost. It failed, catastrophically, flooding the stream surrounding the cul-de-sac instantly and eventually the entire neighborhood, returning it to wetlands. Tom was swept away in the floodwaters. The water almost got me, too. I'd fallen, hit my head, knocked myself out. Forbes and Grill carried me to safety. That was the official version. The houses were a complete loss. Because there was no longer a cul-de-sac, there could no longer be a neighborhood association, so, along with our insurance settlements, thank God and the devil for that extra flood insurance, the association was dissolved. The trust that had been put in place to fund it distributed equally among the residents. I took Angela up on her offer to stay in her guest room. I'd only meant to stay a couple weeks, but it had been months. Every time I went to look at apartments, memories flooded back of touring houses with Tom, and I just couldn't do it. In addition to my rather ineffective therapy sessions, I signed up for an archives course at Simmons, my alma mater. Organizing the Woodland Hills Library historical collection gave me a newfound appreciation for the importance of preserving old documents and records. I did my best to move on, but it wasn't easy. The cul-de-sac left its mark. I was in Beacon Hill Books waiting to order my post-walk coffee when my phone rang. "Where are you?" Lucky demanded before I had a chance to say hello. "Grabbing a coffee." "Good. Stop by before you go home. It's an emergency." I took Lucky's coffee order, then headed up the steep hill to the Moonies' new brownstone. Her housekeeper told me I could find her in the bathroom on the second floor. "Is it too much?" Lucky asked. She was in the narrow upstairs hallway, staring into the bathroom, her arms crossed, head tilted. She looked like she'd been there for some time. I looked past her at the hot pink lacquered vanity and handed Lucky her coffee. "It's gorgeous." She accepted the drink without turning away from the bathroom. "You're right. It's brilliant. How was your walk? Windy. Everyone's going to break out those god-awful sleeping bag jackets soon, she muttered before sipping her drink. I need your help with one more thing before you go home. The living room curtains are in, and I want your gut reaction. She floated down the stairs, fully in her element. I swear this designer will be the death of me. I offered my approval of the curtains, though I knew Lucky had already made up her mind. They had to go. How is your class going? She asked, relaxing into a wingback chair, upholstered in emerald green. It's good. I think I'll sign up for another in the spring. Any luck finding an apartment? I took a breath before responding. No. You're welcome here any time. You know that. I nodded. The townhouse is just about done, I said, changing the subject. What will you do next? I'll start on the Madikit cottage. That insurance settlement's not going to spend itself. I gave her a tight smile. Have you heard from anyone? Lucky sipped her latte. Forbes spoke to Grill. Oh, and Linda texted to say they decided on Marblehead. It's a lazy little fishing town. It'll suit them. I talked to Evelyn the other day. Did you know they bought a vineyard? Lucky groaned. Adam will be absolutely intolerable once they slap their own label on wine someone else harvested for them. Rather than respond, I sipped my drink. We sat a moment, both lost in thought. What did Grill have to say? I asked. Lucky shrugged. Forbes just said he sounded like his old self. That's not good. Old habits die hard, she replied. But we all agreed to do our best to kill those habits, right? We stared at each other for a moment. Don't take this the wrong way, okay? I said slowly. But maybe the decorating is getting a little out of hand. Lucky balked. Oh, come on. What's a little splurge after all we've been through? You know we weren't the only ones who escaped the cul-de-sac that night. Lucky placed her drink on a marble-top side table and began spinning her wedding band. I'm sure it's just PTSD or whatever, but sometimes I wonder if maybe... Don't even tell me, I said quietly, cutting her off. No, I know. I mean, it's probably just new renovations settling into an old townhouse, she began, but was cut off by 3 loud footsteps directly above our heads. We stared at the ceiling for a long moment before meeting each other's frightened gaze. Forbes is home? She shook her head. No, it's just us. God damn it, Lucky. The end. This book is dedicated to Chris Sauer. Without his support and encouragement, this story would never have come to be. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And thank you for your encouragement and support, because without that, none of these stories would be possible. Okay, happy summer, take care, and I will see you right back here in the fall.